Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Deanne Conrad. I'm the Community Relations Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District, and I have the great fortune of also supervising our Community Education Department, which provides classes for people of all ages. And our team was brainstorming one day, wondering what we could do in terms of outreach for parents in our community, and we came upon the topic of social media. And we started developing this program a little more than a month ago. And at that time, we had no idea there would be a national case that would lead right into the conversation we're having here tonight. Some of you may be familiar with that national case. It's a case out of Florida. And some of you may not be familiar. So we wanted to start our discussion today by getting you up to speed on something that has happened on social media involving a 12-year-old girl.
If only my feet could fall as fast as a heart does, I would be so long gone. But I'm stuck under your thumb. I can't get up, I can't get up. I can't get up. If only my eyes could see as high as the mountain, or wherever your heart's gone. But I have fallen on the bank of this river. I can't get up, I can't get up. I can't get up. If only my heart could speak into this river, and you drink me up, I could be free of all these lonesome shivers. I could give myself up, give myself up. We all go back to the river. We will give myself done, and there yourself up with the faintest touch, and I will give myself up, give myself up. I'll give myself up, give myself up. I'll give myself up.
You noticed on that one of the screenshots there, that message was left just 10 days ago. This happened in September, and 10 days ago that message was left on the Facebook page. So still, after so much tragedy has occurred, there are still things happening with this case. And on Thursday morning of last week, Good Morning America ran a video, an interview with the parents of the suspected bullies. So I'm not passing judgment on whether or not they did or didn't, but one of the parents believes that her daughter's website and Facebook page was hacked. That is happening, and so I'll let you hear this.
Facebook post that led to the arrest of 2 young girls in connection with what police say was a cyberbullying suicide of a 12-year-old girl who jumped off a tower after allegedly being tormented online. The oldest of the 2 arrested, a 14-year-old, waking up in jail this morning. We're going to hear from the passionate sheriff who brought the charges. We're going to hear from him in just a moment. But first, ABC's Matt Gutman with the latest on the story.
Calling this a nightmare they want to end. The parents of the 14-year-old girl accused of being the bully ringleader are defending their daughter.
Had you ever thought of her as a bully? Had you been told that she was a bully by the school?
Never once.
Never once.
Telling ABC News exclusively overnight that their daughter, charged with felony aggravated stalking, could not have done it.
You would check her Facebook.
Yeah, I would check her Facebook every time that she would get on it.
Well, every night she will get on it.
Yeah.
So you checked her Facebook every night?
Yeah.
But the father of the other alleged bully tells ABC News he wishes he could have done more.
I feel horrible about the whole situation. It's my fault maybe that I don't know more about that kind of stuff. I wish I did.
On Tuesday, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd painted a vile picture of the 2 girls.
There were statements such as you should, drink bleach and die.
The sheriff was naming names and taking the extraordinary step of brandishing pictures of the 2 minors.
The reason we rushed these arrests quicker than we wanted to is because of this post. Yes, I bullied Rebecca, and she killed herself, but I don't give a, and you can add the last word yourself.
But the parents of one of the girls charged flatly denied it, saying their daughter's Facebook had been hacked.
Is that something that your daughter would write?
No, she wouldn't write anything like that. She's not that type of girl that would just say something like that.
The scrutiny has been so intense, the parents asked their faces not to be shown. And ABC News is not revealing either girl's identity because both have been charged as juveniles. The girl's arrest brought a sliver of relief to Sedgwick's mother.
It felt like a big weight had been lifted, and I cried. It was a mixture of tears. It was relief. It was sadness because Becca's not here.
This weekend, Robin, would have been Sedgwick's 13th birthday. Now that 14-year-old girl is waking up in the jail behind me. The parents of both of those girls concerned that after all of this exposure, their daughters' lives might also be destroyed.
So that is the reason that we're here tonight. To learn more about some of the social media that is available to our students, how it's being used, and we'll even hear about some of the situations that are happening here in Sioux Falls and are taking a great deal of time for our school personnel to look into and get to the bottom of. Tonight, our format will be that we'll have each of our presenters take about 5 minutes or so to share their information and expertise. And we want to be respectful of your time. So if at some point you need to get up to leave, we certainly understand. Feel free to do that. We'll do the presentation part first, and then we'll leave time at the end for questions and answers so that you can ask your questions to those who are experts. We do have Paul Tenhaken here from ClickRain. ClickRain is a social media leading company in Sioux Falls, and Paul is very passionate about this topic. He will start us off, and we'll go from there. So I will turn it over to Paul.
Okay, thanks, Deanne. Yeah, my name's Paul Haken, and I'm the president of an online marketing company called ClickRain. We live in the online space every day, and unfortunately, it's a really heavy start to the evening tonight, but I like to talk about all the great things about the internet, and there are a lot of good things. We're going to talk about some of the not so great things. and specifically, what parents and educators need to know about the changing social media landscape. And I think if there's two important stats to know why this is so important. One is what's happening with the user base in social media, and specifically with Twitter and Facebook, is seeing a real increase in an older user base, which directly translates into those platforms not being cool anymore with certain demographics, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight with the young folks up here. But the other is social media really is everywhere our kids are, because most of them have mobile devices or iPod touches or something, and those channels follow them everywhere. The social media is literally in their pocket nearly 24 hours a day. And that's why it's such a powerful tool. What I want to do is I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of the channels, some that you know a lot about, like Facebook, and then some others that are maybe newer. And then that will maybe set the framework for our discussion. But everyone knows about Facebook. Teens, it's not new to them anymore. They either don't have an account, 6% who doesn't have an account don't have one for a reason. It's not that they haven't heard of it. 41 years old is the average age of a Facebook profile. So it's not young. So all you moms and dads in the room who have one, you're right on par with that median age, hopefully. Kind of the quote I hear a lot is that quote of, parents and grandparents are on Facebook, so I'm not on Facebook anymore. Even though what Deanne just showed, that quote from that gal, was a Facebook post, it's definitely not as popular anymore. And there's a lot of dangers with Facebook. One of the biggest, though, is poor privacy controls. When that parent said, I check her Facebook, it's very easy to post something on Facebook and hide that from a select audience. So I can post it but hide it from my mom and my teacher and my grandma. And so I can say that, but make sure those people never see it. I mean, kids are very savvy with that sort of thing. Twitter. Twitter is one of the most utilized apps from mobile devices, and it's particularly popular among African Americans and Hispanics. It's the largest percentage of Twitter users fall into those demographics. And the danger with Twitter, some of the bad things about Twitter are Anthony Weiner is a great example of a guy who thought he was using a social network securely and ended up pretty much ruining his career just by sending an inappropriate picture. That was pre-Snapchat days, so he was using Twitter for inappropriate things. Also, the reputation damage. A lot of tweets are, I can think of myself personally, and the online research that I do on job candidates or young people coming out of college, and Twitter is the one network that usually will give them the most black marks on their online footprint based on the language they use and the vernacular, and tells a lot about them. Snapchat, most of you are probably familiar with Snapchat, but if you're not, I am lukewarm on Snapchat in terms of, some people say it's bad. It's just a sexting tool. Basically what Snapchat is, you can take a picture and send it to someone, and that picture will self-delete itself in 10 seconds. So no accountability, right? You just send this picture. Well, there's all kinds of workarounds to keep Snapchat photos, which people don't necessarily realize. And so that's a very, very dangerous platform, I think, because there's an assumption that there's no accountability and this is going to delete itself quickly, and that's not the case. And so Snapchat is one I'd be a little bit leery of if you have young people using that. Vine is another real popular platform that's taken off. This has an older user base average. I mean, 36 years old is the average, but Vine is a platform where you can take quick, like 6-second videos, basically. It's like Twitter, but for videos. Same dangers here in that, you post stuff you maybe don't want people to see, but Vine was actually acquired by Twitter, and so you're going to see a lot of similarities in their platforms going forward. Kik, I have to admit, I'm not very familiar with, but I think of my nephew who's 12 years old, and he's got an iPod Touch with Wi-Fi in their house, and my naive brother assumes that he's not texting or calling, or there's obviously apps like Kik that you can put on the phones and use the Wi-Fi to text, and a lot of you know this, but I don't think he knows that. And so it's important to realize that within the Apple App Store, the Android App Store, there's so many apps that allow you to get around having a data plan. You can do almost anything you can do with a data plan, without a data plan, with some of these apps that are out there. And when I say hidden texting, that's a way where I will hear parents say, oh, we don't give them a texting plan. Well, if they have anything that allows them to get Wi-Fi, they can text, and they're probably texting. Instagram, photo sharing site. This one really is skewing more and more younger. How many of you in the room have Instagram accounts or are familiar with Instagram? Instagram is a photo sharing site. My niece the other day, she's 12 years old, all of a sudden it says Bethany Elise is now following you on Instagram. And I'm like, she's 12 years old and she's on Instagram. And so I gotta, start cleaning up my act a little bit because my niece has followed me now. But definitely the same sort of dangers here with the type of content that people will maybe put up. And the other thing about Instagram is if you don't lock down your profile, anybody can follow a user. So when a girl is posting photos of herself and her account isn't locked down, very easy for pedophiles or anybody to follow pictures of that person and eventually start to learn a lot about them, including geographic location and things they're into and so forth, to make things like trafficking and other things a lot easier subject to approach. Probably the most concerning website for me is ask.fm. And if you haven't heard of ask.fm, pay attention to this site. And in my professional opinion, I see absolutely zero value to this site. And if any of your kids are using this site, I would say stop it. And the reason I say that is I went on the site the other day just to do some research, and it's terrible. It's a terrible site. It's a site where you basically can post questions anonymously if you want, and you can answer questions anonymously. So there's no accountability. So it takes cyberbullying to a new level because there's no accountability. And there's been 9 suicides in England alone that have been linked directly to ask.fm cyberbullying. This is a screen grab of some conversations that I just looked at some Sioux Falls students' profiles. And these were terms and vernacular that was out there. We all know you blanked every guy at blank. I'm going to get you a stripper pole, put it in your basement so you can put on a show like the slut that you are. That's an anonymous post someone's writing on someone else's wall. Just like what was happening with that girl in Florida. Drink, bleach, and die. This is the kind of conversations. You're a nasty whore. Why are you so ugly? And my heart breaks for this girl because she says, God made me this way. Thanks. I applaud you for attempting to be hurtful. She's trying to stand up for herself a little bit. But you throw stones at someone that many times and eventually bad things happen, like a la Florida. So that's a site I'm extremely leery of. And I have a 7-year-old, so I'm not quite at the digital stage with them, but I see no value in this site at all and would run from it. Last thing, it's really not a site, but emojis are so popular right now with kids where they can have a whole conversation without even using words. And in some ways, they even use these emojis as like code. Whether that's, you can see there's a conversation that's going on there. You can maybe pick up some of it, but some of it you don't because you don't speak the emoji vernacular. And these are just really popular with youth. It started out as a Japanese thing, and now their emojis are really big in the U.S. So again, the danger of those, I think, is just talking code. It's kind of like Pig Latin was cool when I was little. We talked Pig Latin, and this is like the evolution of Kid Pig Latin. So I'm gonna end with that. Maybe those set up the framework for some of the things we'll talk about. These are all themes that we'll discuss, but my take on all these networks, you guys, is it's very hard to block kids from using them. So what's really important is just educating them, man, on proper usage. And if they're probably going to have an Instagram profile, so teach them how to protect that profile and how to approve friend posts. And don't friend your kid on Facebook and follow them. You need to log in as them and see their activity. I mean, you need to get into their accounts and not just follow them, things like that, because it's very easy to game the system and trick us as kind of non-tech savvy people. So With that, I will turn it over to our next speaker.
Thank you, Paul. So Paul has all of this wonderful knowledge, and even if I feel like I know this much about social media after Paul talks, I feel like I know this much now. One thing we did want to hit on here is the Sioux Falls School District has embarked on its one-to-one technology initiative this year. If your students are in 3rd through 12th grade, they will have access to a Chromebook. The Chromebooks have filters on them to block social media sites, gambling sites, a variety of things. In fact, the other day I saw a tweet from a student saying, "You're kidding me, they blocked another site?" And so we have people looking and working that every single day. Now, as Paul said, kids are savvy. They may find a way around here or there. So your involvement in what they're doing is very important. But I can tell you that the Chromebook did not precipitate the conversation you just saw up there that Paul showed you. Those conversations are coming about because of smartphones, because of iPods, iPads, your home computer. As he said, social media is everywhere. So this isn't about the district's technology plan and, oh my gosh, now we have an issue. Those issues have always been out there if your student has had access to social media or to computers. The important part is educating yourself to become knowledgeable about what's out there and what's being used so that you can ask the right questions with your students at home. And to do just that, we thought it would be helpful to have some students here with us this evening to tell us a little bit about how they use social media and maybe some of the pitfalls that they have seen or heard about themselves along the way. So we're going to invite our first student, Jamie, to tell you a little bit about how she uses social media. We'll hear from our 3 students, and make sure you're taking notes and writing down any questions you have along the way so that we can answer those for you and make sure that you get the information you need before the night is over. So I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I think they covered a lot of it, but I'd really like to speak on what's really going on in social media and even at schools here in Sioux Falls. It's really important because we're seeing it, but a lot of the times you aren't. So on social media, all these sites, anyone can just get on your profile and say whatever they would like. And we are embarrassed that we're getting bullied and we don't want to tell all of you. So a lot of times it's hidden that way. And at school, I've witnessed multiple kids being bullied in the hallway. And the most that I can do is just bring them down to the office and get them an office referral for doing that. But a lot of the times it just comes from talking to your kids more and getting to know what's going on, how they feel, their friend group, who they're hanging out with, who they're following online. Yeah, it's hard, but I feel like if you just educate your kids more on how to handle these situations and to be more open with you, it would decrease the amount of bullying, or at least the way that it's being handled at schools and online, I think would be a good way to do it. Thank you.
Hi. So I like okay. Sorry. Okay. I, just like many other teenagers, use social media, but I use it wisely, I'd say, because I make sure I block people and make sure that if I don't want someone to view my profile, they can't, which is not my parents, of course. They have access to it. And I make sure that my profile is safe. So if someone wants to see my things, they can't. And I think social media is actually a great thing. You just have to be educated about it. So, you know, you have to know the dangers. And as parents, I think you guys should actually get involved in it more so you know what it is. And so that way you can help your children when they're interested in having an account, because then you can teach them about it. You can teach them how to do the privacy settings, how to block people if, you know, maybe they're bullied to them, so you can block them. Because bullying is out there. I see it almost every day. There's nasty comments, someone's attacking someone, and on a social media site you can tell them to stop, but they don't have to unless you block them. And, you know, as parents, I think you guys really need to be proactive about your students. And I know it's easy to think, oh, my child isn't, you know, being bullied or isn't a bully themselves. But one of the most common signs that your children something's wrong is that their behavior changes. They become maybe depressed, and that can lead to suicide or self-harm. And you just need to be more proactive. Watch them. Watch what they're doing. You don't have to be invasive, you know, of their privacy, but, you know, just talk to them and make sure they know what's right and what's wrong. Thank you.
My name is Zach, and I would probably say I'm at the other end of that spectrum. I really haven't ever bought into the whole social media thing. I mean, I have a few accounts on those sites, and I've definitely used them before, but I could probably more or less provide an outside look in from a high schooler's point of view, and that would be where I could give you information. One thing I can say, though, is that as much monitoring as anyone thinks they're doing, you can hide anything from anyone short of like a police investigator. If you want to put something online and not know somebody and not have somebody know what you put on there, there are ways to do it that are very easily accessible. And the problem with that is as soon as you take somebody's face away from them online, all the filters are gone. So yeah, I was kind of more prepared for a Q&A, so. So yeah, that's what I got.
So we chose to have high school students on our panel this evening to give us that perspective. They've used social media now for a while, but we did take an opportunity to sit down with middle school students. And I just want to share some of the comments. We took their comments verbatim, word for word, and I want to share some of what they said to us that should be alarming to you and I. First of all, they all believe they have a ton of close friends. Just because they have, you know, so many friends on their page, they believe that those people are their close friends. So each one of them, oh yeah, I have a ton of close friends. But turning around, one of the students told us that, let's see if I can find it here. You never know if your closest friend is going to betray you. What the context was of that conversation is that someone had taken this girl's identity, created a profile, and said, this is Julianne, let's call her. And Julianne is generally a nice girl, but all of a sudden she gets real wicked on social media. Well, it's not Julianne at all. It's Betsy who created that profile and is saying nasty things under Julianne's name. Okay? That's happening. And our schools have uncovered that, and we've gone through the processes of discipline and such. You're going to hear some more about the criminal side of things from our detective coming up. You know, it used to be that if you passed a note here or there, it was between a small group of people. Now everything becomes everyone's business. Okay? Another thing they said is, why do you go there? We asked him, why do you go there? You always want to know what's being said about you, and that always draws you back. They are mindful of their own, persona of what's being said about them out there in social media. And that in itself is enough to take them back to that social media, even if they feel it's not worth their time and effort. Ask.fm, no good comes of it. That was from a student. Some students told us they have a clean account that they tell their parents about, and then they have one that they keep secret. So knowing your student, and I would say that these students around the tables that we spoke with are your average everyday student who probably have good grades and are still feeling the pressure to maybe have an account that their parents aren't aware of. Everyone has a phone, so you almost always have access. A lot of the sites don't have effective abuse reporting. So they recognize that some of this is happening out there, but the sites don't have those privacy controls or abuse reporting. One student told us, sometimes it's better not to tell your parents or a school counselor. You can bet our eyebrows raised at that because there were school counselors in the room. Why on earth is this happening and you're not telling a school counselor or your parent or some trusted adult? Then a second student piped up, sometimes it's okay to tell your counselor or principal because they will keep your name anonymous, meaning trying to get to the bottom of what's being said, who's saying it, and putting a stop to it. But please go to your students and tell them if something like this is occurring, it is not okay to keep that a secret. That should be an expectation in every family, that they can come to you and tell you about it, tell a school counselor, tell the SRO officer. That's what we're telling your kids in our Oveus bully prevention programming that we offer. I can tell you that I was surprised at some of the things the kids were telling us, but they were unbridled. They were giving us the information just as we'd asked for. And then I went home and asked my own 10-year-old. And I was surprised at what she knew about Snapchat and Instagram and these types of things. She doesn't have a smartphone, but she has friends who do. And so whether or not they have the technology readily available to them, they're still aware of what's going on out there. Next, we are going to hear from Detective Jess Speckmeyer, who works for the Sioux Falls Police Department. And I saw her shaking her head as some of the students were sharing their information. So we will hear from Jess next.
Hi, everybody. As she said, my name's Jess Speckmeyer. I'm an investigator with the police department. I'll give you a little bit of my background before we start going into some of the other stuff. I've been with the department actually for the past 10 years. During that time, I spent the first 7 years doing doing patrol work. So I was riding around in the black and whites that you see riding around town. After that, I actually went up to our investigation area where I've been doing investigations specifically in the area of crimes against persons for just over the past 3 years. A lot of those investigations include working with a lot of your own students, dealing with some of the bullying that's going on, not only inside the school, but also outside the school. Some of those bullying takes place actually face-to-face, where some of the students are meeting up, just like we used to when we were younger, where you meet up after school in the park and you settle your differences there. Unfortunately, a lot more of it is moving to the social media. And personally, I think part of it has to do with how easy it is to sit behind a computer and type something and hit send when you don't have that personal face-to-face connection with the person that you're dealing with. It makes it a lot easier to carry on that conversation online. Also makes it a lot easier to be convicted of it. In South Dakota, we don't actually have an official cyberbullying statute, but what our legislature did was they went in and, in an attempt to try to keep up with the changing technologies, They actually went through and modified some of the language for the statutes to include not only the old stuff like home phones, the actual passing notes back and forth, but in keeping up with technology included any phone, any electronic media device. So it will include anything from your iPad touches, where all you can do is get on the internet, all the way through to the cell phones where you're actually calling somebody and placing those harassing phone calls, text messages, whatever the case may be. One thing in addition to what these guys had mentioned as far as the actual social media sites, we're also seeing a lot of internet-based phone numbers coming through. And those are kind of along the same lines as the Kik Messenger and all those other different messaging apps that you can download onto your iPad, your iPods, your Kindles, any of your other devices. And through those internet-based phone numbers, people are trying to carry on that same anonymous communication without actually going out and buying a real phone number. So they can go online and actually type in that same text messages. So your students don't necessarily have to have the smartphone or the dumb phone, as I heard it called earlier. So they don't need that. All they need is something, their iPad Touch, so they can access the Wi-Fi, so they can get on the internet to do that. One thing our students need to be careful with is there are statutes that are out there that protect people against harassing and threatening phone calls, emails, text messages, any communication sources. Now, if it gets reported through law enforcement, typically it's gotten to the point where parents have attempted to handle it, the school district has attempted to handle it, and it's gotten to the point where people just aren't backing off. At that point, we'll go through, we'll do our investigation, and there is a possibility of being charged with that Class 1 misdemeanor for those threatening or harassing phone calls. If it continues to a point, it actually can be constituted as stalking. The first offense for stalking is a Class 1 misdemeanor, and anything beyond that, a subsequent conviction beyond that first one, anything within the next 10 years is actually going to be a felony. So that's something that I don't think our students are actually thinking about either, is while they think that it may just be a bullying, it's actually can be classified as stalking if it gets to that point where there's that repetitive history of the threatening and harassing behavior. Thankfully, we don't see a whole lot of those charges coming down with our students. I think a big part of it is it's being handled appropriately at the school level when it's occurring in the school. It's being handled appropriately at a parent level when it's happening outside of the school. I like that the slide is still up here, because that's the big thing that we're all kind of harping on tonight, is that we need to all be involved with our kids. We need to maintain that open line of communication. As our students mentioned, you need to not only have, it's not enough just to be a Facebook friend with your kids. You actually need to have passwords to all of their accounts, and you need to explain to them why it is that you need those passwords and why you need access to it. It's for their safety and for that protection. And as long as you're able to keep those lines of communication open from the very start, then it's going to be a lot easier to explain why it is you're asking for their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, MySpace, Kik Messenger, and all those other passwords. And I could keep going, but I ran out of breath. So maintaining that good, open communication is going to be huge. One thing I thought of when I was sitting up here is, and it was don't remember exactly who said it, but something about, you can't not be on the internet. You can't not have social media. It's not all good and it's not all bad. It's kind of like diets. 20 years ago, eggs were bad for you. They were going to kill you by just looking at them. Now they're good for you. It's kind of the same theory when it comes to social media. Everything in moderation is okay, as long as you know what you're doing, you know what you're getting into, and you know what you're consuming. So a big thing for protecting all of our kids is going to be keeping that communication open.
I know that when I was in high school, the beatings would continue until the grades improved. Nowadays, I had the same mom and dad all the way through. Nowadays, you've got those families You get more stuff.
Yeah.
You don't do that. How do you keep them involved and keep them doing and keep them, you can only rake the leaves in the yard so many times. What do? You take them down there.
Yeah, there you go. Do the entire block.
If you keep them tired, there's a lot of things but how do you do some of that?
Well,
And if they're not your kids, but, you can't give a kid a whipping.
there's a lot of things that work a lot better than a paddle on the cross backside. And a lot of that goes back to, and you hit it kind of on the blended families. Big thing with the blended families that I'm seeing is you'll have the two sets of parents, but they're not communicating as adults amongst each other. And the kids are picking up on that and figuring out that they can kind of play one against the other. And I'm sure you guys have seen that as well. So being able to maintain that adult relationship, you may not like the person, but you have to get along with them. You have to be polite, you have to be cordial, at least during that limited time that you have that interaction. As far as what's the best way to get your kid to do their homework and improve their grades? Parenting. And patience. Lots and lots of patience.
Oh, you're reading my privacy.
How old is she? Okay. One thing you can do is disconnect the internet until she follows the rules in the house.
I did that. She passed herself and there was nothing wrong with her. That's all your parenting issues.
Well, if the issue is she won't listen to you and won't stay off the internet, then that's something that you'll need to address from a parenting aspect.
We're going to hear from our counselors and principals and such, and also from our assistant superintendent of HR and legal services. The school district does have a bullying policy. It is policy JFCE, and bullying is defined as: it consists of repeated physical, verbal, nonverbal, written, electronic, or any conduct directed toward a student that is so pervasive, severe, and objectively offensive that it has the purpose of creating or resulting in an intimidating, hostile, or offensive academic environment, or has the purpose or effect of substantially or unreasonably interfering with the student's academic performance, which deprives the student access to educational opportunities. So our staff, our principals and counselors are very familiar with what bullying is. A one-time instance, we don't necessarily punish the student to the fullest extent of the policy in the school district, because everybody needs a chance to recover from doing something and making a mistake. But that consistent and repeated physical, verbal, nonverbal, written, electronic, those are the types of things we are looking for. Our counselors have done a fantastic job of trying to get to the bottom of some of these cases and situations. And I will look to this side of the room to see if there are any over there who are willing to give their perspective on what they've seen and the job that it is to investigate and find out about these social media situations. Anyone?
Perspectives, and one girl that I had in there, she had someone create a fake profile of her on a number of different sites, and that was just a case where I felt pretty helpless. We went on and helped her report all of the different abuses, but at the same time, I don't know that she heard back from any of those people. So from my perspective, I was able to help her and come alongside her emotionally, but we still don't have any idea who this person is out there. completely and totally anonymous. So I think she's gotten off some of those sites and kind of came to that conclusion on her own, and I was really proud of her for doing that. And then I think it's gotten under control as far as it hasn't been happening to her anymore. But that's just one experience that I've had this year. A lot of things are smaller and easier to deal with. I have kids come in a lot and just say, someone posted something about me online, and I say, well, what are we going to do about it? Sometimes they want to get off the site. Sometimes it's just as simple as me talking to the other person. Sometimes they're able to talk to the other person and kind of stand up for themselves. Sometimes, more often than not, a lot of other people jump in and say, knock it off, stop bullying. We don't do that in our school. And that's something we reiterate over and over in our anti-bullying lessons. Just if you know that someone is being bullied, or if you are, you tell a teacher, you tell a counselor, you tell a principal, and you tell one of your parents. So they've heard that over and over and over again. So we're really trying to get that out there. And a lot of our kids are so good at reporting. And I'm so proud of them whenever they stand up for themselves and for each other. So there is some hope out there too, but it can be discouraging. So anything that you're doing, we want to support you, and we feel your pain, because I know it can be discouraging, but at the same time, there is hope out there.
Anyone else want to pipe up? Anyone?
Hi, I'm Carrie Aaron, principal at Memorial Middle School. This is my 39th year working with middle school kids, so I've seen it all, some way before computers started, back to notes. I've seen the good and the bad, and one of the things that was most encouraging to me this year was when I got, or discouraging one evening when I got an email from a parent saying somebody has put up a website, "We hate so-and-so," inviting other people to sign on. And I thought the next day, how am I going to handle this when I get to school? Well, before school ever started, before that bell rang at 8:45, I had 8 separate kids who came in to tell me, this is a website that's up there, we know it's wrong, we said it's wrong. One of the kids signed on to his Facebook page so I could see what it said. And out of all the comments on this nasty website, there was one who agreed, and the rest who were saying, this is wrong, this is mean, take this site down. And so I was very, very encouraged with that. But I've also been discouraged when I talk to kids. A little bit dread Monday mornings, because so often kids will come in with what's happened over the weekend, with something that's happened on social media. And when I talk with kids and I ask them about things like that horrid site, ask.fm, why do you even want to be on there? Well, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out. That's really where they're coming from. And so I appreciate so much hearing from all the experts up front, because the kids are always going to be a step ahead of us. And the constant vigilance about keeping track of what it is that they're doing and who they're communicating with. It used to be just a matter of keeping track of who our kids were going to the mall with. Now it's who on earth are they online with all these dozens and hundreds of friends that they think that they have. But it's something that we just absolutely have to do, and we want to stand behind you as you work with your kids. And if you're looking for something that would be a consequence, take away their phone.
That would be a consequence in itself.
Okay. My name is Erica Varco. I'm a behavior specialist at Memorial Middle School. I don't want to overwhelm you with naming off a bunch of social media sites for you to monitor, but one other thing to keep in mind is a lot of chatting that's going on with online gaming. Students are logging on and they can chat with people all over the world that are playing the same video games as them. Never are they asked how old they are, where they're located. So these students and people around the world can make up any sort of individual they want to be. They can be a 35-year-old man when really they're a 12-year-old girl, and vice versa. That's just a lot of things that we're seeing with issues that are distracting the students' learning. Is they're so wrapped up in these video games and getting home in the evenings to talk to all of their friends that they've met online. So that's another thing. If you have kids at home that are gaming, really look, are they online? Are they talking to people? Are they becoming friends that goes beyond these video games? So not to overwhelm you with more things to monitor, but really, really watch those online gaming sites also.
It's a great point, and again, that's one of the things that the students told us about is that they spend time in these conversations with these people from around the country, really. So what are the consequences at the school level if something happens? We have our assistant superintendent of HR and legal services. She wasn't able to be here tonight, so we recorded her conversation and her perspective. So we will share that now.
I think for parents, when they're looking at what their children are doing online, they should look at it as any other mode of communication. Our basic rule in ethical use is don't use anything in an electronic communication that you wouldn't say in a face-to-face communication with someone else. So if you're reviewing as a parent someone's online communication, look at it in that way. And if the content of that isn't something that would be acceptable in that type of a communication, it's not acceptable in an electronic communication either. Well, that would be our acceptable and ethical use of technology resources policy, our bullying policy, and our harassment policy. Specifically, the bullying and ethical use policy make it very clear that the conduct that might occur off school grounds can be used as discipline if it violates either one of those policies. And most of those violations fall under intimidation or threat to others or bullying. In fact, if you look at what state law did when it came to defining bullying, it says very specifically it's not the physical location nor the time of day of an incident involving the use of a computer or any electronic device. It's not a defense in any disciplinary action if it violates the district's bullying policy. So even when the legislators were looking at what constitutes bullying and what can we do for cyberbullying, they put it right in our state law that it's not the location, it's not where the computer is being used. Now we have an additional policy application when our folks are using our computers. And so now when we have the one-to-one computers and the students are using the district computer Chromebook, then you go back to our policy, and anything that's used on that Chromebook we have the right to look at any time. And so if that's where the electronic communications are coming from, the Facebook postings, emails, whatever they might be, if they're using our computer, our Chromebook to communicate even at home, we have the right under our policy to look at the content of that Chromebook at any time. That's something that would be a new way for principals to be maintaining or monitoring perhaps communications that we didn't have before. I think that primarily in regards to what I'm aware of, it's been Facebook communications between more the middle, high school range of kids that leads into a violation of an intimidation or a threat to others, or the bullying policy, and those have been brought to my attention. They're generally dealt with at the building level, but oftentimes the principal will call and talk about where they found it, what they've seen, how do they process that with the students. But I think the bullying and the use of Facebook as a medium to maybe feel freer in your expression is where we see the most problems. Both our ethical use policy and our bullying policy state very clearly that if whatever it is that we find, we will report it to the police if we believe it rises to the level, or if we suspect it's a criminal activity, because obviously the police ultimately make the determination of whether or not they feel there's sufficient evidence. But, you know, with our SROs involved in our schools in investigating many of the Facebook complaints or concerns, they're there and they see them, and so they're able to make that determination really quite quickly whether or not they believe it rises to the level of a crime. And then we go down our path of discipline and they go down their path of investigating and whether or not it's criminal activity. What generally happens is the SRO assists us in investigating our policy violations, and if in the course of that they determine there is suspicion of a crime, then they will arrest the child. They will do that, and then to get our own information, it's just like any other crime. They would have to go through the right channels to get the information from us. You know, I go back to saying, is it something that you would say in a face-to-face conversation with somebody? And if it's not, don't hit the send button. Really just look at it as another way of communication. It's simply faster and perhaps sometimes easier to say things than it would be if you were having that conversation. But think about it that way before you hit the send button or before you type, and you're going to avoid a lot of problems that the electronic communication seems to have brought forward.
Okay, so now we are to the point where we want to give you an opportunity to ask the questions that are important to you so that you walk away with the information you need to have the conversation and be more effective as you're monitoring these social media sites. So we have a microphone here. We'll walk around and hand the microphone, and you can ask your question of any one of our panelists up here, and we'll go that route.
Thanks. I just have a question about the, like I know how to monitor my daughter's texting, but with the Kick site and sites like that, is there a way to monitor that or how to figure out how to, other than, I'm guessing, taking the phone away at night to make sure that she's on it? Because I know that's an issue right now that we're having where I almost need her to turn in her things at 10 p.m. and she can have them back the next day. Is there a way to monitor those sites?
One of the best ways to figure out how the site works and exactly how it is that our kids are going to be transmitting that information is actually to go out and create your own user profile on that site. Actually go onto your computer, go onto Kick, go onto Instagram, wherever that your kids are using, create your own user profile, and you're going to see what the kids are doing as they're downloading those programs. And you're also going to see how they're able to communicate and what they're able to communicate. So that's going to be one of the best ways for you to know how the actual application works, is just to play with it. It's the same way they learned how to use it as they started playing with it. As far as limiting access, with it being a cell phone, take it away at night. There's absolutely no reason that a kid needs to go to bed with their phone. If they need to talk to somebody, that person's going to be in their house.
And my other question is, like, I know for texting, there's always, you can get, it can be subpoenaed.
Mm-hmm.
Can that same thing be with those fake numbers that are out there, like internet-based numbers and the conversations?
Yeah, there's very, very few things that you can do in the electronic world that's going to be truly anonymous.
My question is regarding that ask.fm site, and I'm not sure who to direct the question to, but I know that some of the questions can be asked anonymously. My question is, at what point do you attempt to trace an address, and what would it take to attempt to trace an address? Does it have to be threatening, or can it just be making somebody's life miserable?
It all depends on the situation. Now, if it's sometimes one or two comments can be enough to start that investigation. Other times it'll be a series of posts that we'll look at. But I mean, really, one statement, one comment can be enough just to start that initial investigation.
Well, what if it's, you're ugly, you have zits? I mean, it's not threatening, but it's mean and probably considered bullying and somewhat repetitive.
Just one comment like that probably wouldn't be enough to violate the criminal statutes that we have on the books right now. But the school district may have options. If it's during the school day, if it's using school computers or even using the Chromebooks, the schools may have more options as far as repercussions that they can follow through.
So I did call our IT folks this afternoon to get these sites unlocked for this evening because they are, in fact, locked during the school day. So if your kids are using those tools, perhaps it's on something other than school district issued electronics. However, Our IT department is monitoring that daily because students are very savvy. And so when they find a way, we find a way. And so we don't quit on that. And we want to make their life a little bit more difficult because they can't get to all of their social media sites. So something to consider, that if they have a smartphone or an iPod, those types of things, those are likely their most accessible tools. Otherwise, they're going to have to work really hard to get around the filtering that we've set up. So, more questions? Yes, gal in the back.
My question was going to be directed towards the gal who said to block the sites. Is it all sites that can have a block on them, or just certain sites? Like Facebook, does Twitter have where you can block? And then are you just blocking somebody?
Oh, you mean like protecting the content from being
Yeah,
seen?
if you didn't like the content, you can block it. But say somebody was going to be on your account and you blocked them, are they still able to put out what bad words or messages that they want that you just aren't seeing, but then everybody else is still seeing?
Right, yeah. And each platform's kind of different, but like Twitter, for instance, you can protect your tweets, which means the user has to approve that you can now see my stuff, right? On Facebook and Google Plus, for that matter too, you can say something and then control exactly who you want to see that. You know, in Twitter, it's kind of your whole audience sees it or nothing, so you have to prove who that audience is. And Instagram's the same way, so they each kind of work in a little bit different fashion. So.
And I had one more question or comment, I guess. When the gal had mentioned something about her daughter having a password on the account, I have 4 boys, and because we can't be where all the devices are or where all the children are at all time to monitor, we've actually put all the passcodes on all the devices. So if anybody wants on a computer or their iPod or their iPad, they have to have us unlock it. So then we are aware that, oh, they're on that device and we know what they're doing and where they are, because there is so much danger that they can access through those Wi-Fi sites and stuff. And we've been trying so hard to keep it safe, and we can't figure it out.
Smart mom. I like that.
They don't like that.
I wouldn't either, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Go ahead. Question.
Okay, I just was wondering if you could clarify the school district policy on when this becomes a school issue, like nights and weekends, and what about during the summertime? So as a parent, if I were to find this, would my first line of action be to come to the school? I mean, and why would that be? Because the alleged bullying is from another student, or?
Well, it says the policy is in effect while students are on property within the jurisdiction of the school board, while students are in school-owned or school-operated vehicles, while students are attending or engaged in school-sponsored activities, while students are away from school grounds if the misconduct directly affects the good order, efficient management, and welfare of the student or the district. So generally, if there's a conversation that takes place at midnight, that conversation generally doesn't turn off, and we don't discuss it anymore at school until we're back, off of school property. There are usually residual things that happen in the hallways or comments made in the classes or something along that line. And so even if those conversations were taking place outside of the school day, if it has a negative impact on something that has, during the school day, then yes, it can be disciplined through the school district's discipline policy. Does that help? Okay.
And if I may, one more thing on that too, is if you're wondering who to report it to, whether to get a hold of law enforcement versus the school district, we maintain contact with each other. We have officers that are in all of our schools throughout the district. So if the report comes to the police department and we review it and go, this is something that's going on in school where it's affecting the students in school, we can actually forward that report directly to our school resource officers, and then they can, in partnership with the school district, follow up on that.
Thanks
for
that question.
My question,
yes.
Thank you for all this great information. I'm a little ignorant at a lot of these things, but my question would be along the social networking genre with the taboo thing of pornography. And if the school district has a situation, if they have a policy based on, I've read different instances of third graders, even in, Christian schools, that a whole class saw a whole, pornography at the lunch hour just because someone had their iPhone, because they got through on a home website, things like this. So these are concerning. When I had talked to administrator at my school, that he just basically said, well, kids are smart and they can see things if they want to. And it was just really kind of, it's a passionate area for me, because I feel that's as poisonous as bullying, of course, to our children. So I didn't know if there's a policy or, with these Chromebooks too, that
anything that would disrupt normal order of a school day, whether it's a written word, a picture, what have you, would be grounds for student discipline. And maybe we can have one of our counselors or our principal who's dealt with discipline issues.
First of all of the district computers have filters on them that prevent that from happening, and we are constantly monitoring them. I work in a building and am continually sending information to our IT people that here was a workaround I figured out, so our kids probably know about it, and so they also go in and they block those as well. So the content filters are working. One thing that I looked at, I grew up when internet was first coming into being, and the computer sat like on the kitchen table because my parents didn't know what to do. Now I look at that our internet is on our smartphones, and our smartphones do not have content filters on them. And if they are, they're very limited. So I just caution parents that by giving your students a data plan, they have an unfiltered content program on their phone, internet browser on their phone. So while at school we are doing everything we can to block it on our end, they have potential danger in their hands. But we do address it when it comes about. When we find out that things are happening in school, it is addressed, and we often consult with our school resource officers in those situations to determine the appropriate step to continue. So we do address it when we find out about it, and we take it very seriously and know that we are trying to battle it from content filters to keeping our eyes and ears open and dealing with issues when they come up. But that it obviously is a concern, and we are aware of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not aware of a filter, but...
The question was, is there a content filter that you can get for a smartphone? Are you aware of any filtering?
I'm not.
The only filter I know of is called a dumb phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing.
Phone, right?
Yeah.
I think to my earlier point, though, the example, my brother, he assumed he was okay because there was no data plan, and I'm like, but dude, he can get on Wi-Fi, and now he's on the internet anyway. So, it's not just a data plan. If they have a iPod Touch, anything,
Safeeyes.com. Anybody familiar with that one? Safeeyes.com. Said that it can be placed on your mobile device. Safeeyes.net. I see. Okay, so good information for anyone who wants to look into that. Safeeyes.net. You can purchase it by number of screens that you want to block or number of devices you want to block.
One small interjection, if I may. The Chromebooks are not a problem. The filters are getting better and better like every single week. It's getting ridiculous. I have no games to play now. But yeah, those aren't going to be a problem.
I did not plant that either.
I have two questions. Okay. The first one is for the IT department. How often are those filters updated? Are they updated daily or? And I have two questions. Okay. So, okay.
We don't have anyone here from the IT department right now, but I can tell you that they are on it daily. And so I had to call and say, at 4 o'clock today, I need these sites open. And so I spent about 15 minutes on the phone while he said, which site? And I said, this site. And then he went out to open them up, and they are open until midnight tonight for me and me only. Okay? They're not open for all of your students. They can open it by user. And so I, on this computer, hooked to this internet connection, can have access to these until midnight tonight. So I can't answer specifically, but the content filtering is part of an overall platform that the state provides for us. And then when we find out about more and more sites, we go and block those within minutes.
At the current time, I think it would be often enough for you to not worry, because every once in a while in class, I'll sit there and hear somebody go, oh, they blocked this now. So
Yeah,
it's definitely a work in progress.
Kind of
They're
like
still
at work, huh?
Yeah, they catch up with because, when we have extra time, we're trying to find our music. I want to listen to music, and they're blocking every site that we want. So,
Which kind of leads into my next question. This is to the students. How do you guys find ask.fm?
It's just an app. You just go on, Google Store if you have Android, or the App Market if you got Apple. Just search ask.fm. It's right there on your phone in probably 20 seconds.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get that. But so how do you search for something like that, or anonymously, or you put that keywords in anonymous websites, or
They
the
sometimes
posting?
just advertise it. When I have an Android, and when I click on my app store, basically, there's already a list of things that they're showing you that are new, that they think are cool. You might like it. Here, I'll show it to you, just like any other.
And that's how you find those.
And there's
Yeah,
a
and
lot
you
of
just
them that's
click and
mostly just
search.
like one friend goes, hey, look at this cool thing I found, then explosion from there. Everybody has it.
Or even when you're playing a game, they'll have advertisements for different apps. So that's where we find different games, or even askfm.fm on the bottom. So
I've never heard of that website, and or that app, and I don't want to.
Don't go there. Okay, we have a question in the back here. .com, safeeyes.com, not .net, safeeyes.com.
I was just going to say, I found my daughter's Ask FM site just by looking at her Instagram, and in the banner, there was just a simple link, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is, and I clicked on it, and there you have it. There was her Ask FM. So I actually have a question about Ask FM. I'm wondering, I don't like that she has it, but I'm afraid if I have her get rid of it, she'll just create it under a different name, right? So what I'm trying to do is help her use it appropriately. But when I monitor it, am I seeing everything if I'm just going on and typing in, ask.fm and her name? Or do I actually need to sign in that case with her user ID and password to see everything? So that's one question I have. And then the second question I have is, what I've noticed with my daughters is when her posting starts to quiet down on one site, that's a cue that she's moved on to the next one. So it was Facebook, and then Facebook got quiet. And then I found out, well, she's on Instagram. And now Instagram is quiet. She's moved on to Ask FM. So I've noticed kids posting a lot. Do you have a blog? And so I'm wondering, are kids now starting to blog? And is that causing issues too? I'm wondering if that's maybe the next thing.
We didn't talk about Tumblr, which is like a micro-blogging platform. It's very popular. So a lot of times if kids are going to have a blog, Tumblr would be the first place they would turn, which is it's easy to set up your own Tumblr. And so that's probably what they're referring to there. Regarding your question about Ask.fm, and I'm very novice at it, but your best bet is to be able to log in as her, so you can see not only what she's posted as well on other people, her overall activity log, and not just what's been written on her wall or.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you can search for users. So when I found those examples I put up there, I just searched Sioux Falls and started looking at all the users, and so it's very easy to find people.
There is an unfortunately impressive.
I'm sorry? Right, they have an account, but they may go and post on someone's wall and toggle over to an anonymous state instead of their name.
You ask anonymous, you answer as yourself, usually, with that. But I will say there is an unfortunately impressive amount of information that you can get that requires nothing, just a Google search usually.
If when you were talking about them going in and using somebody else's name to create a profile, can that only be done on Facebook, or can that be done on other
Anything.
sites?
It's called catfishing is a term which means you fake like you're someone else and kind of lure people in. And so any of these accounts, you can set up a fake Twitter profile and act like you're someone who you aren't. And it's definitely not just a Facebook thing.
And it's incredibly easy to do.
Takes about 5 minutes. I've never done it, but I've made one. And
I've heard it takes about 5 minutes, right?
It took me about a minute to make my own kick, but yeah.
Question here. I don't have a question, but I have a statement. If you guys take anything out of this tonight, you need to get on Twitter, you need to get on Instagram, and you need to get on Ask FM. I have recently done this and am completely shocked what you will find from amazing, wonderful students. My kids' friends, my daughter herself. I'll just let you know a little bit of what I found. Spying on my daughter on Twitter, found a link to Ask FM, found a girl that had posted nude pictures of herself and is being bullied like you would not believe from people she has no idea who they are, from her friends. And you wouldn't believe what's going on Ask FM. You need to get on there and you need to see it because it's absolutely disgusting and you need to be talking to your kids about it.
And if I can add something, also on Twitter, it seems like a lot of people act totally different because of the demographic that you explained. Like they talk differently and they post nude pictures for guys to put on their Twitter to brag about how many followers they have and everything. So I think that, the Ask and Twitter are probably the worst. I don't know, from what I've seen.
Well, on Twitter, you kind of know who's saying it, but on Ask, you don't.
Yeah, that's the problem.
But people have the balls to do it right on Twitter.
I guess.
I'm like you. But as 2 months ago, I have enlightened myself because I need to know what's going on. Because she's on that phone constantly. It's driving me insane.
Does she have a smartphone?
Oh, yeah.
See, what you do is you keep them in a dumb phone unless they want to take a smartphone.
She's taking from her own smartphone. And I take it away from her at night, but she's on that thing constantly. And so I got on Twitter and I started spying and I started finding out all kinds of things and reading things. Not that you have to. Oh, yeah. How do you do that? You just get on there and you start looking and then you click on links and you read and you'll just get into a world that you never believed.
Can I say, I'm sorry. I'm gonna just interject one thing here, and that is the nude pictures that you referenced before. I think especially if you have teenage girls, you need to really reinforce how that stuff comes back to bite them. And the term revenge porn is becoming a vernacular now that's used a lot in the industry, but it's, they have a steady relationship. They send a promiscuous picture to their then boyfriend. The relationship turns nasty. Now that guy has a piece of something that can ruin this poor girl. That's exactly what. So it's right. It was able to be saved probably.
Screenshotted.
Yep.
And then so it's there, and then that screenshot got sent to tons of people. And
Right.
the
So the point of that is, again, you probably can't. It's education. It's just telling the girls, don't ever do this. There's no reason to do this. You may think your boyfriend would like this, and he probably will until you break up, and then he can ruin your life with this. And it's very serious. And so I think just really reinforcing that point is what's the best way to do it.
It doesn't matter how clever you think you are in sending it and thinking it'll be gone. Somebody is just as clever that can save it. If it's over the internet, it could be forever.
Yeah, it never goes away.
Question in the back, please.
Sorry, it's back to cell phones. I have a primary school daughter is the oldest. What do you recommend that I do to get her started in the right direction and hope that she stays there? As far as cell phones,
Don't get a smartphone. They don't need it at that age. Just texting and calling you.
at what age do you recommend it? Say they want to go to the mall with their friends and you want them to have a way to call you in an emergency.
I got my smartphone when I turned 17. I survived off a dumb phone and just texting my friends, and I had minimal problems with it.
So much less drama. I just got mine actually.
Definitely.
And you can touch base with your phone provider as well and talk to them and see what kind of options they have as far as actually adding a second line to your cellular plan. And you can put very specific restrictions on there as far as what they're allowed to do, and the parental controls that a lot of the phone companies have are pretty restrictive. So keep in contact with your phone carrier as well, and they might be able to help you out.
I have a 10-year-old, and she has a prepaid flip phone. And she calls me or her dad, and that's it. And so those are the rules of our house, but I was surprised at how much she knows about Snapchat, Instagram, all of these other tools, though she does not have access to them. So even if they are not right at their fingertips, they are hearing about it, even at the ripe old age of 10.
Can I say that Snapchat just launched an app called Snap Kids, which is for the under 13-year-old kids. And it's you can't share the photos, but you can take a photo and you can draw on the photo and things like that as a way to get the hook in their mouth for when they can use Snapchat. So
I have a two-part question. When they download an app, will that automatically appear on our home computer if everything's linked to the computer?
You set up the cloud, I think so, yeah.
And then is there a way to turn on, like when my son first got a smartphone, is there a way to turn on, like under the privacy settings on his Twitter, on his Instagram, so whatever he looks at, I can turn on the privacy cloud settings on my phone, so whatever he looks at will automatically get like a printout of that? Because at one time I thought
that'd be awesome.
There's a will, there's a way.
Well, I
just don't know how you find the way.
At the beginning, if I turned on the cloud, his stuff on Twitter, and then my stuff, I was getting some Instagram posts on my phone. I could go on his phone and look at it through my phone.
I mean, you could put his Instagram on your phone so you see everything he does, but...
Yeah, as far as I know, there's no way to what you described earlier of almost like a map of his activity on Twitter, what he did, what he looked at. No way to really track that.
The only way you might be able to do it is if you like talk to him about it and then have him go back to his like account settings on that Twitter account, and then all of his notifications and the activity that he does gets sent as like a text message to your phone. Because that's, I don't know, it happens with my phone. Maybe you can work out something with him and have him do that for you.
Okay, question in the front.
I just had a comment. We were talking about smartphones versus dumb phones. My kids have dumb phones, but they also have iPod touches, and those are smartphones. They're smartphones on Wi-Fi. And so, you know, we thought we were pretty safe with these kind of archaic phones, and we really weren't. And our biggest problem is just the obsessive nature of staying on them too late, checking for affirmation all the time. So one of the things we've done is gotten a new wireless router in our house, and you can set it up by device and have certain devices not be able to access Wi-Fi at certain hours. So we can set it up by the iPad goes off at this time, the PCs go off at this time. So that's a little piece of advice. If you have an old router, update it.
It'd probably be worth your $80. We're going to go to the question in the back here.
Really, I was just going to share a little bit of information on what we've done too with that Wi-Fi. And you have to think too, we've been trying to investigate, my husband and I, how to keep it safe at home. And if any device that your kids are on that has Wi-Fi, it's the same as setting them in a room with pornography. They are exposed to all sorts of stuff, any site, any word you put in. We've tried to block everything, even through Canine Browser, which is supposed to be a safe browser for kids. You can type in a word that maybe your firewall will block, but if you hit images, it will give you all the pornography there. Even if you type in breast, you will have a full line of stuff. And then when you talked about which Wi-Fi router to use, we just upgraded to Apple, and that does not have parental control. So we pulled that all back off and put Netgear back on. And that lets you put in a bunch of words that then it'll block any of those sites that your kids would access, but not the images. So we can't still get the images to not show up if they were to type in any word. And if you go home and you type a word, and it's very discouraging what your kids are so easily able to access, I think. So that's one thing we've looked at.
For your Wi-Fi,
Safety.
if you have a protection on it, you know what is protected. Anything you don't know, there's no protection. If you didn't know before today that you could protect your Wi-Fi, there is nothing there. They have everything.
I think we'll take one or two more questions, and then we're going to wrap up the evening. So is there any final questions? Yep.
This is for the students again, especially you, Zach.
Oh boy, I was prepared.
So if I was going to go dig around on my daughter's iPad, what would I be looking for? Any advice?
Nothing really. Just you look for all the social media apps. Just quick scroll through them. I mean, if you're using her iPad, odds are she's not protecting it, because she's probably the only one who uses it.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying Twitter.
Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, anything that looks like a social media, check it out. It shouldn't take too long to see good, bad, okay.
So is there a way to delete certain parts of conversations on there?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
Yeah.
Any way to pull those back up?
No.
Depends on the site, I suppose. Maybe, most likely no. Yeah.
So I think what it comes down to is having those conversations before things get out of control. And if they have gotten out of control, doing our best to reel things back in. I think what I heard tonight is we all have a lot more to learn about this. And our kids know a lot about what's out there already because they've gotten out. They're not afraid to try anything. They log on, they get their username and password, and boom, they're in. And you and I have a little bit more trepidation about those things. We're just not as... I tried to go have an ask.fm account, but it wanted to link to my Facebook, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So it wouldn't let me go anywhere, and then nobody would ask me questions because, and I even put the savvy name of Troubled Youth 13. I tried to be somebody else. Nobody wanted to talk to me, so... Anyway, I hope you have found tonight to be valuable. Valuable in maybe learning a few things you didn't, maybe in just knowing that we're not alone. We are all working on this together, that you have resources in terms of your best resource is probably your student in the house, but contacting school counselors, our principals, asking the questions, finding out the answers, and just keep on digging. I appreciate so much the people that have suggested other tools out there or sites that could be used, because I think we can all learn from each other. We're all kind of in that vulnerable stage, and it's important to be able to share the information. So I thank you all for the time and attention you've given here tonight.